Hi everybody, my name is Marissa Van Name and I'll be doing a presentation on Erikson's biopsychosocial theory of development. I have chosen to focus on Erikson's sixth stage, which is intimacy versus isolation. This stage occurs in early adulthood, which ranges from the years of 20 years old to 39 years of age. This stage explores relationships which hopefully end up in a long-term relationship. By avoiding and fearing commitment can lead to isolation. A success to this stage, it leads to love. I'll just give you a little background on my interviewee. His name is Sal. I met him when I was 16 years old working in a real estate office on Staten Island. When I moved to North Carolina, um, I haven't seen him in a really long time. And then when I moved back to Staten Island, I actually did my internship at a geriatric center where he actually is a part of. So even though I knew him, just running into each other years after years, I never really got into physically, talk to him about his life and how he got to where he was in his life. So it was pretty interesting getting to know my interviewee. So his name is Salvatore, but he does prefer to be called Sal. And Sal is from Brooklyn. So if anybody knows Brooklyn, he is very to the point. So I'm going to reiterate a lot of the things he says in nicer terms because he did tend to curse a lot and he did tend to definitely tell me how he feels with no covering it up. So he's from Brooklyn, New York, and he met his wife, Carol, in Eastern District High School, which is in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. He married her at the age of 20 years old, but it really wasn't by his choice. It was more of his parents and her parents choosing. So Sal is Roman Catholic, and so was Carol. She was Roman Catholic. And the way that he was describing it to me is that both families kind of just agreed that they were going to get married. So even though they knew each other in high school, Sal really didn't like her per se. He just listened to what his parents wanted, and of course, his beliefs in the Roman Catholic Church and their religious beliefs as both families. So he married Carol at 20 years old, and he had 4 children with Carol. This all happened during the early adulthood stage, so between 20 and 39 years old, he had 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. Sal was a banker in Brooklyn. That was his passion. And then he upped and moved to Staten Island, New York. And he was about 35 years old when he moved to Staten Island, New York. And I'll just give you a little history on Staten Island and Brooklyn. So you move from city to country basically back then, and that's kind of it was a huge transition for Sal, and it was a huge moment in his life because all he knew was Brooklyn. His family, his friends were there. He knew, the guy at the corner store. He knew, where to buy his best prosciutto, and he knew all this. So it was a very big transition for him to move to a different part of New York. And like I said, it was basically moving from the city to the country. So he did express that a lot, how that changed his life, his lifestyle, but he did do it for his family's sake, basically. So Sal's marriage to Carol was due to his parents, like I said, and his religious beliefs are Catholic. So his parents basically arranged a marriage with Carol's parents, in which both obeyed their parents' wishes and they got married. Since Sal and Carol had 4 children, they decided to move to the better neighborhood of Staten Island. And I asked him to clarify what he meant by a better neighborhood. And what he said was that Staten Island back then was like the new place to move if you had children. So Sal really didn't want to leave his neighborhood, his friends, his family, but he did it to better his children's lives. When Sal moved, he started a new career in real estate, and this was a really big turning point for Sal because he's been a banker for so many years, and real estate was definitely something new for him. But he started doing real estate in Staten Island, and I knew him from him doing real estate. So he actually still, at 77 years old, is still doing real estate. So Erickson states that adults face challenges of forming new relationships as we age, right? So Sal states that he still misses his friends from when he was younger. And that's something that has, how can I say, that's something that has kept with him all these years. I mean, he's been on Staten Island for probably a good 40 years now, but he still misses the things about Brooklyn, and that he says that he could never get back because Brooklyn has changed so much that he won't ever have that except in his memory. So Erickson also states, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Erickson also states that that adults do not navigate towards the stage will feel alone. So Erickson states that when we don't complete a stage, that we can't like move forward in our life. And I do agree with him in some point of views regarding that. But for Sal, even though he did basically fall into Erickson's stage of intimacy versus isolation, he didn't have that intimacy that Erickson says, that love that to find. So he did feel alone a lot during his 20 to 39 years old. And he told me that he never felt the connection between him and his wife like you're supposed to. So that's something that Sal inhibits in him still. So Sal marrying someone because of his family as well as moving to a new environment created a crisis for him in a way that he kept on bringing that up. That was a huge part of his entire life, was the fact that he did marry somebody and that he couldn't find that. I mean, he loved his children, but he couldn't find that connection with his wife for all these years. So by Sal experiencing these changes in feelings, his completion of Erickson's remaining stages, his negative feelings towards his wife, his new home in a different community, his new career, and a loss of friends and family nearby. Sal's hardships during his adulthood definitely paved a lifetime of unhappiness for him because he couldn't find somebody to lean on. I mean, he had his wife, he married his wife, but it was because of his religious belief and because of his parents. So he missed that connection and that hope, that love that we all need. He felt that he was always giving everyone what they wanted, but never satisfying his own needs. So he put everyone else before himself. And he expressed a great deal during the interview how many times he felt alone in his life up until recently. So he didn't have the connection with his wife after 40 years. He loved his children, but he still needed more. And being a Roman Catholic, it was so hard for Sal to cope with his feelings due to his religious beliefs. So I asked him, did he, go to confession? Did he do anything to get these feelings out, to get over them, to better himself? He said that he was embarrassed, basically, to admit to anybody the situation that he was in. And I asked him if it was a lot of people in the situation that he was in, which I think was common back then. And he answered that a lot of people did marry at a young age and have children at a young age, and they did marry somebody, that they didn't want to. But he just couldn't fall in love with Carol the way that other people fell in love with their wives. That was his answer. So it was kind of hard to interview him and get a lot out since he's so to the point and just kind of kept on repeating a lot of the answers. So by Sal moving to Staten Island, he was 35 years old, did increase happiness in him and hope for him, because it was like a different outlook. As he described it, Sal's move did help his career in more ways than he would ever even imagine at this point. I mean, he fell in love with real estate, and that's something that he said that he he had a hard time falling in love with his wife, but he fell in love with real estate. He said that Staten Island was a new place to be, and he had so many clients. Moved from Brooklyn to Staten Island, so he kind of made his old community, like he said, into his old friends. Kind of moved to Staten Island at this point of his life too, and they started basically having their own get-togethers again. And Sal liked to play pool, and he would go out with his friends and have some drinks with them. And he sold houses, and that was like the booming part of real estate on Staten Island. So he made a lot of money during this time. The move definitely was a good career choice. It made us happy. It made his children happy. He was happy that he could support his family in the way that he was able to support being a man. So I tried to look up some kind of other theory that would portray on Sal's whole life during this time. And what I found was symbolic interactionism, which is the theory that focuses on individuals' behaviors, but their behavior is based on what the individual actually believes. And I feel like that was a perfect theory for my interviewee, because Sal truly followed the beliefs that a marriage is death to us part with the Roman Catholic religion. So his belief basically made his life have challenges, but he chose to stick them out for his religious beliefs and his parents' beliefs. So I feel like the symbolic interactionism is definitely a theory that Sal portrays. So Sal experienced many limitations, but the one that is most relevant is Erikson's theory is not finding true love until he reached the age of 67 years old. So Sal's first wife, Carol, did pass, and Sal remarried 10 years ago at 67 years old. Sal expressed to me, and it makes me a little teary-eyed, that he finally found his true love. He waited his whole life to find this woman. He married her at 67 years old. So in Erikson's theory, his intimacy was definitely later achieved in his life, but as Sal stated, that it's the most memorable life achievement that he's ever accomplished. So it's pretty interesting to get to know him, to understand that a man married someone, had lovely, beautiful children with them, had a whole life, but still hoped for something more out of his life. And he did accomplish that one thing that he truly wanted, which was to love a woman. And he married a woman, and the woman that he married had 3 kids. So he calls the other additional 3 kids part of his family. So it's 7 of them, and he has 10 grandchildren right now. I asked him if he's happy with his life, and he says that he's extremely happy with how his life turned out, and that he's happy that he met this woman because she gave him everything that he's earned for this since he was 20 years old. So it was a good ending to the interview, and I hope everybody really did enjoy it. Like I said, Sal is 77 years old, Brooklyn guy, and he definitely tells you how it is. And he was very repetitive with a lot of the questions I kept on answering, which made it a little difficult for me to get through the questions on the PowerPoint. But I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's. Bye.